Okay, hold on.
You can't like get it out of your head. Like it's like just not okay in your stomach. It feels like you went through
Yeah,
something.
you kind of want to dissect it, go back through.
You have to like try to find the answer to, but you don't really know what the question is.
Yeah.
You're just like, I have to know more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Narratives and Nonsense, where friends talking about random and recent stories, newsworthy or otherwise. Connor, who are you? What do you do here? What's your spiel?
Oh, I just like kind of help out on a show, and I'm just here to talk with my the master of the five strings, the devourer of your onion rings. Yeah, Connor, what's up?
And I'm Gillidan or Jordan. Yeah, let's jump right in. Connor, how was your last week?
It could have been worse, I suppose. It's been a little nicer weather-wise. It's been pretty windy, which kind of sucks, but there's at least no snow for now, anyways. So
Dun,
that's
dun,
always been
dun.
good.
Okay.
Work was fun. I got slapped on a job on Thursday, and like no one had any clue where anything was going. So like we found out we showed up. There was supposed to be somebody there. There wasn't. They were using the bay we were supposed to be working in. We thought we had to take out one panel and extend track, then we had to take the whole door down, and it was just a whole
Just a
kit and
mess of
caboodle of just
miscommunication.
yeah, just nothing is right. And the worst part is they're literally right across the street from us, so you'd think we'd have our info down a little better for somebody
Yeah.
to go visit so regularly.
They're like, they're right there. It'll be in and out 2 seconds.
But we got it did, so it was a lot of trial and tribulation, but it happened.
Yeah, no, that's fair. On my end, work has been interesting. My boss is going to be on vacation. Apparently, it's like the first time he's been on vacation since some of my coworkers have known him like 5+ years. So he's gone for a week, and he's like, "All right, do I have enough things that I'm like making sure people are good to like handle or go through?" And I'm like, "Dude, we're good. Go have fun. Go relax."
Bye.
So that's been interesting, and then crack Lego Star Wars. It came out and it's so much fun.
It's a good one.
It's goofy, it's silly, it's way bigger than I expected. For those at home, Connor and I played it this last Tuesday, the day of release, official. Here it is, bing bang boom, Bob's your uncle, all that jazz. My goodness. We played together from like 6 to 8:30 or something, I want to say.
Yeah.
Something like that. We played for a good chunk of change, and then after Connor ended up dipping out, I continued to play until like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I made it through episode 4, and I made it into the start of episode 7 because I wanted the scavenger mechanics, because it's one of the like classes unlocks it, very much the same idea from the old Lego Star Wars free play things. Only certain characters do certain things, and ultimately the most like important part of this whole endeavor, we were streaming it on my channel. At about 2 a.m. I discovered something. So, how I set up the stream, it was, the direct gameplay footage, and then I have 2 sources of audio. There's audio that's going through my speakers and audio that's going through my headphones. Normally, when I play with people for, Kingdom Hearts or for Halo, those are 2 of the other games that I play on my channel. It's something where there's always sound coming out of the speakers. I did not set up the stream to stream the sound coming through my headphones. So Connor and all the game audio was just non-existent for that entire time. So
Nice.
That was disappointing. That's just one of those sad things. I'm gonna have that as probably like an unlisted live video on my channel at some point, just so that I can remember the fun times. But yeah, Connor, I miss out on all of your perspective for like
Aw,
for especially for moments where it's like Jordan bashing his head against a puzzle and then you just walk up and finish it and walk away.
I'm like standing around doing nothing.
Oh god. So
It's
yeah.
so funny.
It was so
That's a good one.
upsetting. And at 2 a.m, you know at that point I'm tired and I'm just like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
huh.
Well,
Well, I'm gonna fix it
shoot.
now. Uh, uh, uh. Well, it's fixed. Shit. So that was entertaining. Besides that disaster failure, I still have the footage. The footage is a little weird because the game is a little bit more grayscaled than it should be. Like the colors aren't as poppy. That's something that I just
Yeah.
added in a filter to like make it look better on the stream. But yeah, lessons learned. That was fun.
No kidding.
Seriously, it was so disappointing at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna be unlocking scavenger, or I'm gonna get the studs times 2 upgrade,
Oh yeah.
but I need to figure this out because dang it, it's on my plate now. Um, so that was fun. Outside of that, goodness, today, in hindsight, as the recording and release of this episode, today for the recording, and yesterday for when you may see it, I will be starting Halo Reach, which I'm excited for. We finished ODST last week, so I'm excited.
Can you wait for
It'll
a
be cool.
marathon?
I've heard it'll be great in my Halo progress. What Saturday we played more KOTOR. That's actually on Marcus's channel. It's on his Twitch on Eldritch Bunch, and it's very fun watching him finally go through Knights of the Old Republic because he's done a lot of BioWare games and he loves RPGs and the like, but given
Very
that
much his environment.
yeah, but given that there's like so much said about Knights of the Old Republic, but it is from 2002, like it is an old game. It's a little bit of an intimidation to like hop in, both between it being old and like starting that adventure. Like starting an RPG, I always feel like is a little intimidating because you're about to like jump into a world proper. So do you like it or
Yeah.
not? Let's go. In his case, the first stream he was really enjoying it. This last one he's like, okay, yeah, now I'm like really into it. Like all of these NPCs are characters that I would make in D&D games. They're that level of like kooky, direct, zany, what have you. So he's starting to like really embrace it, which is very, very exciting because boy, I
Fun
can't
to
wait.
interact and bouncing off of him.
Yeah, I can't wait
Every
for
little
him.
situation you're in,
Yeah.
just trying to talk to him
Uh,
and see what's up.
Watching him go through the rest of the story. Right now, he's aiming for a Han Solo-esque smuggler.
Nice.
So very talkative, good with guns. I'm interested to see how the ebbs and flows of the story take him with that, without saying much more, because yeah.
When you played through, did you ever do like? Did you play lots of builds? Did you like just getting a lightsaber as soon as possible? What was your kind of?
I've always been like a melee first because the prototype Vibroblade having the first
Yeah.
upgrade that you get in the game, I'm just like, yeah, let's go.
All day.
That's
Power
always been
game
my
in it.
approach.
Yeah, my man.
Yeah.
I like to go for the double vibro blade. Really, I just think that looks cool.
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
like the two-handed weapons
Um,
like that.
Outside of that, I mean, it's basically are you one-handed, are you two-handed, and then are you ranged or are you melee? That kind of feels like that's the consistent build
Definitely.
choices that you get to make. But yeah, very excited for that. Now, what else? Goodness, weather here has been kind of nice. I mean, it's something where this last week went from cold to warm. No like change in wetness in cloud cover until about 2 o'clock in the morning today. Like there was a little bit of rain
Jeez.
at night.
Yeah.
Might have been playing Lego Star Wars and gotten through episode 5. That's why I know about it. Otherwise, I would have had no idea. This next week, word is we're gonna get 1 to 3 feet of snow. looking at
Oh, jeez.
looking at like the weather thing, just googling it. It's more like Tuesday there's some rain and it'll be between 40 to 60 degrees depending on your day, and I'm like, Colorado weather, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't believe you. I'm skeptical now.
Can I
I
trust
heard
you
it twice
anymore?
earlier in the week, and now I have no idea if you're pulling my leg. But hey, what can I say? I mean, we've literally seen snow every single month down here. So
No matter how many times the DM says I can trust this guy.
yeah, yeah. Um, Following that, for like more proper newsworthy things that were fun and uplifting, um, you know, Ukraine has been a thing that's been happening. We're gonna side tangent away from it. There's not a lot of like direct updates, so we're shifting what I would say is thematically appropriately for the grander scope of the podcast, to more environmental type stuff. Um, More specifically, we're going over to Scotland. In Scotland, this is something that's probably one of the cooler success stories. Um, about 80% of the people out there in whatever interviews and polls were supportive of reforesting efforts in Scotland, and it's a similar situation where reforesting has kind of picked up a little bit more in England as well. When getting more direct with like what those results have been, about 18% of Scotland is now forest land, forest covered area. The last time that Scotland had that many trees, like forest covered area, would have been 1100 AD. So
Jeez.
literally like but depending on what your definition of medieval times is, it's like the early medieval times.
Holy
it
crap.
really it
That
really
is
is
insane.
way back when. So that's a pretty interesting success story. Similarly, England is also looking at, you know, increasing its reforesting efforts out there. They've made a jump to 10%, which the last time England has been that forested would have been back in like the 1300s. Very much medieval
Oh,
times, like a
man.
couple 100 year difference, but seriously, it is something that is pretty darn impressive. Supposedly, this is a trend that is happening a little bit more worldwide, where Earth is looking greener than it has in the last couple decades. But just tracing it back to like, okay, how far back is it that we started like chopping down trees and the like?
No
Um,
kidding.
it tells a little bit of a tale that way. In other like green news, um, here in the U.S., it's something where natural gas is our number one source of electricity, and then it's usually coal or nuclear is what pops up in
Oh,
second place. We're making some good strides with wind because this last Tuesday was the first like proper day that wind overtook coal and nuclear power. So it is like a 1 day event. It is a milestone, but it is something that we're making really good progress and headway with. So that was especially exciting. And then kind of transitioning from that to other renewable energy things. There's a lot of like weird scattered stuff with solar panels. So the first two is just like how we're using them. One is in the Philippines. They're embracing more tech centric expansion. So it's something where they're working on like getting satellites into space for satellite based internet, that kind of thing. From a more like state centric approach, it's something where they're actually getting the ball rolling for uh, internet capable solar powered teaching aids that will be in classrooms. So that was something that's pretty cool, just from
wow.
like a from top to bottom kind of standpoint, seeing the larger expanse, which is less involved with solar power, being, you know, internet satellites, but the lower case being, hey, like for the classroom, solar power, bam. That was something that was cool. Similarly, out in California, in the the goal of like efficiency and effectiveness, they're putting a lot of money towards providing solar powered panels that will sit over water canals for two reasons. One, naturally energy, but two, uh, kind of following up on what we talked about a while ago, where in some African climates, it's something where plants are growing better because of just the fact that the solar panels are absorbing all of the UV radiation and the light. There's less water evaporation. You're basically taking that concept and you're applying it to a waterway so that the state of California, which, you know, as it would, being
Bit
somewhat
of a dry place.
yeah, dry desertized climate, has some water conservation stuff that it has to struggle and try with. That's something where putting canals over the rivers will hopefully continue to push those water conservation efforts while also providing green energy. So that was really, really fun to hear. And then outside of that, there were two other like non-environment stories that we wanted to poke on. The first is the uh, the official word has been announced. The new Supreme Court justice is now elected and properly in place. Ketanji Brown Jackson is the first Black woman to serve as a Supreme Court justice. Great news. That's just like a fun thing, historic moment. But then we get to like the fun and weird thing. Connor, if somebody dropped off a pink bag with a envelope in front of your door, would you call the police? Or would you just open
Mm,
it?
yeah, I probably would mess with that. Like,
Like,
I don't.
it's a
I
little
definitely
bit
wouldn't
weird.
open it.
All right. So what's really funny is following a little bit of an investigation, because naturally it's a little bit terrifying as a thought. A a a librarian was greeted with a like pink gift bag. Inside there was a brown envelope with a square and the message printed: librarian, happy Easter X. They opened this up and it turns out that inside of the box, we're going to rewind a little bit. Something had gone missing in 2000, and there were a number of like multiple searches to try to figure out what this is, where it was. It just in this last week, it was revealed or gifted, donated, who knows, that the missing notebooks written by Charles Darwin from the 1830s, those are now back in library university custody after being missing from 2000 to like last week. So these have been gone for about 22 years. When they showed up, they're in actually surprisingly good condition, given that they're from like the 1800s. So they've been well taken care of, however they've been taken care of, or how wherever they were, or what have you. Um, it's something where with paper, it's a little bit dangerous for a humidity, temperature, light exposure type thing to make sure that that paper still has all of the information that it would have. Back in 2000, there was an internal request to move it out of like the stronghold lockbox section of the library so that they could try to get some like photocopy scans of it, and it had been missing ever since, and it wasn't discovered that those notebooks were missing until 2 months later. Fast forward
Jeez.
22 years, and they show up in a nice little pink bag in front of the door, all wrapped up in a nice bow with a fun message saying happy Easter.
Some like master thief just wanted to read them for himself or
uh,
something.
right, like it was something where I saw that and I immediately went, oh, conspiracy theorists are gonna have an absolute adventure with that. that sounds like something where it's like, oh, they took out the proof of the thriving community of lizard people that are a result of the evolutionary standards, or I don't know what. They're like they're rewriting history.
Oh,
That's why it,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They stole it to, yeah, totally. Oh, we
There's a
discovered this
big
new
cover
thing.
up. It's like a National Treasures Book of Secrets type thing. It's so funny. So there you go. Those were the news stories that were both uplifting and really funny to hear about. Moving on to like fun holidays for today. Uh, there's a number of them. They're all over the place. The first was Marketing Operations Appreciation Day, which is a very specific thing, but I do have to like provide a little bit of a shout out for people that work in that, i.e., like for my job, it is something that it is a struggle to make sure that all of your marketing works together in tandem. I work in operations, so I get to see like when pictures are not sized correctly between two emails or that kind of thing. That's it's a nerve-wracking job in some places. So not the not the life and death scenarios of like firemen or policemen, but very much important. That was one thing. Another one was Education and Sharing Day. So stay in school, kids. Uh, and then Pet Day, National Pet Day, which you can't not. I mean, it's wonderful. I've always wanted a cat, and I get that need satisfied by my roommate Marcus's cat Shelly, who's little like one of the more sociable black cats. It's something where I she's almost as sociable as like a dog, where you can just like, all right, come on, come here, and then just like rub her belly, and she won't even care two ways. Like she won't think twice about it. She's just like, all right, yeah,
Absolutely,
love
yeah.
me. That's it. Tell me more. And then there's also Apollo, which is my roommate Kevin's cat, who is one of the most skittish animals I've ever seen. It's something where it took him months to like actually not care too much if I approach. It depends on where. Like if it's upstairs, if it's like where he usually is hanging out and chilling sometimes, he doesn't really mind if I come over, say hi, give him a little pet. If he's downstairs, it's like, okay, you know what? You've got a 50-50 shot of even getting pet, and if there's a stranger, it's zero. I'm gone. So
Nope.
it's a big nope. So there's that, and then cheese fondue day
Ooh.
for all your artery plugging needs. I don't know the last time that I've had a cheese fondue anything. Probably a
Oh.
wedding. That sounds right. Usually when I think of fondues, it's always like a chocolate fountain fondue type situation. It's always a dessert thing. Um, but man, that stuff is good. Like it's hard to ever dissuade something being dipped in cheese.
No kidding. Oh,
Right? Oh. So there's that, and then finally the last two were a little bit more music themed.
cheese or
One,
chocolate.
ooh, chocolate. Chocolate. Oh, I love chocolate. I'm okay. I'm a little bit of like a slut for hot chocolate. So that's mostly where my love for chocolate goes, is hot chocolate in particular. If I can drink it. Fondue is like the step adjacent to that.
Oh
Uh
yeah.
but yeah.
Oh.
Oh. Mm. Um and then the final two music themed kind of holidays were eight eight track tape day, which I I know that I have used a a tape track before, like in one of those like portable sets. I don't know if I've specifically used an 8 track in
Yeah, they're a little
particular.
different.
Little different.
Yeah.
It shows how far
Funny things then.
technology has come. Like uh I'm trying to think of the last thing that would have used a track that I would have used. I have a my sisters had a Barbie karaoke machine where it still used
Ooh.
tracks when, goodness, that would have been mid 2000s. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it was something where the toy would use a track, but you hadn't quite gotten like a toys have CD players type situation. It's right on that edge. That's when we would have had that. I think that's the last time I used a tracked thing. And of course, it's for a Barbie thing. It still had an aux plug, so you can like plug it into any modern device, which is
Yeah.
10 out of 10. But what a throwback that is. And if you're
Seriously.
really frisky, you can use your 8-track tape to listen to a barbershop quartet because it's barbershop quartet day as well. Uh, Honestly, that's probably one of the more wholesome, like cool things as far as holidays have gone. Barbershop quartets. I don't know why there's like a great appeal to them, but I love them. I think it's because it like automatically it gives this vibe of like four dudes that hang out a lot and practice singing. I think that's part
Yeah.
of it. Like it's almost maybe the pre-Glee effect of everyone sings the same songs together and then they happen to sound cool. I think that might be it. Like there's some overlap there in some way or fashion. I don't know. Same thing with like
No
acapella
kidding.
stuff, just as a whole.
I can do it a cappella.
Acapella. So, with all of that being said, we get into like our proper segment. Connor, what are we talking about?
Uh, uh, I had some good cheesecake last. No, we're talking about another Studio Ghibli classic in my marathon of trying to make Jordan watch all the anime. Princess Mononoke.
Princess
Classic.
Mononoke. The titular
Foundation.
the honestly, if I were to describe this in a couple words from the three Ghibli scene yeah, three. Mononoke, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle. Those are the three that I've seen. Of those three of Studio Ghibli movies that I have seen, um, to me, Mononoke feels like more of a properly like timeless classic. Like I would say that this is like their Avatar, like Blue People Avatar, where
Mm,
it's like, no,
mm.
this is a bigger deal. Like there's a lot of craft put into it. I will say in the case of Avatar, like plot wise, uh, this, however, knocks it out of the water in terms of the writing, the characters, the animation, the backgrounds, the music.
Says
I think is serviceable. It's not like bombastic, uh, per se. Like it's something where it's a tone setter and it knows that it's a tone setter, which is good. I mean, it really. I'm impressed with this movie. Um, that is the the best that I can
this
say.
is one of the greatest movies of all time.
It
I would say personally, this is better than Akira, which is another anime movie a lot of people bring up a lot of the time.
yeah.
But I
Uh
would say this one is even better than
I wouldn't be able to contrast it with Akira, but I can say that
that. Oh,
to me,
maybe that's next.
dun dun dun, to me, this I think a good comparison is like if there's a Jim Henson work where it's like this is a movie that was wanted to make with a particular goal in mind and then they executed on it. Jim Henson's Dark Crystal, I feel like Mononoke is like Studio Ghibli's version of that. Like it really is just
Absolutely.
like
Uh,
it knew what it wanted to be, and I will say that compared to some of the other films, which I think uh tie a little bit more into like the higher fantasy aspects, there's a little bit more going on. It's a little bit more fantastical. This one's more grounded both in its people and its scale. It's something where you still have like a war between factions thing happening, but unlike something like Howl's Moving Castle, where it's it's something that's there, it doesn't necessarily take the forefront at like a lot of the time in that movie. I feel like in this movie, it's something where they're like, no, this is directly central to both the characters involved and the theme of what we're trying to say. And that's really impressive to me. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I feel like there's usually this balancing act of, is it a plot moment or is it a character moment? And I feel like both are so intertwined in this that there's not really a balancing act. It just is balanced throughout. Like you can't even say like, oh, the characters are being more focused on than the plot. It just
Than like
feels
what's
like,
actually happening.
yeah, it's the words that
It's
we
very
were,
like in the moment. Like
yeah, yeah, it I don't even know. It's so this is the first movie that we've talked about on the show where um I went to look up other people's like dissections of the movie explicitly because I finished the movie and went, I need more info. I need more processing. Like my brain isn't translating all that it wants to translate, and I feel like that's going to be very indicative of how I continue talking to about this movie, even
no kidding.
after. Before each podcast, we talk about what it is that we want to discuss, and I'm sure Connor, you can attest that I'm a little bit more all over the place with this one.
No kidding. It's one of those movies, man. Like there are a lot of, and like I would expect, there's a lot of different opinions of what this movie is about. Like there's a lot of way. It's a lot like The Matrix in that way, where you could read it a lot of different ways, and it'd be
Yeah,
pretty credible.
yeah,
Like I totally go with there. It's very multifaceted piece.
yeah. So
Up
getting
to it.
more specific, as far as like how this movie is made and constructed, um, the thing that really stood out to me is the visuals. It is something where the again because
So
I feel,
smooth. Oh,
yeah, and because I do feel like they tone down the fantastical elements. I feel like they were able to better focus on what it is that they had and being really attentive to detail. One moment that like caught my eye as I was watching it and saw people mention and reacted following was, there's a moment where Princess Shitaka is talking to one of the other characters, um, and you can see like as they're eating rice, there's a grain of rice that's stuck on the bottom chopstick. Like it's just stuff like that is scattered all throughout this
oh.
movie, and
Like every tuft of fur, little leaf,
yeah,
just. Oof.
yeah,
And
and
the big one with this is the anatomy is very accurate, I would say.
yeah, this is this if other
Like there
movies,
are fantastical things, but they would kind of work in a sense
yeah,
of how they're like drawn.
yeah,
Like they're not
and
impossible creatures, I guess, so
yeah,
much.
and similarly, because this is a more like grounded movie, in some ways this is going back to the Dark Crystal analogy, this is a darker movie as well because it's more in that realism vein. So there is some blood and gore, and that caught me off guard. I was like, oh,
Yeah, and
oh,
it's not like
hello.
Dark Crystal, which is kind of like, can I show my kids this? Can I not? There's some scenes of Dark Crystal that are pretty, but
Yeah,
this is
I think,
definitely like, if you're not into showing your kids blood or anything, this is not the one for you.
yeah, if Dark Crystal like borders that line of like, am I gonna mentally scar my kid? Well, maybe, but
Yes.
there's nothing like horrifying
And
in
I will do
it,
it
and
happily so they can be
yeah,
scarred just like me.
yeah. It with Mononoke, it's like, okay, you're gonna have to have a serious discussion of like, all right, so when do you start watching PG-13 and when is blood okay? Because it's a little messy in some places, and it's it's it uses some 3D, which was impressive to me for this like demonic spirit. That's kind of the central like problem of the movie is the instigation for moving events along is this demonic entity that it reminds me of the 2D Clone Wars. Oh no, I'm spacing on the guy's name. Oh no. Oh no. He's the Gendai species. I know what the species is, but I don't remember the name.
Oh my darn.
Obi-Wan fights this worm creature thing where it's literally just like sentient muscle tissue where it's all
Mm.
interwoven, connected thing. And that same kind of effect, it feels like, is achieved with the 3D animation of the monster hate demon in this, where it's lots of these
Big board demon.
interweaving. It borders this line of both being organic blood goop and like tentacly
It's like
worms.
biomass, like
Yes.
the Zerg from StarCraft or the Tyranids from Warhammer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like
Um,
fleshy, gooey
and it's
ooze.
gross and it's off-putting and it's a
Very
little
much.
horrifying because it's that vibe where it's like, okay, yeah,
It's like
technically
organic
not.
to an offsetting level.
Yeah, it's like
Like
you're
it's a
not
little hyper
actually seeing
realistic
somebody's
sometimes.
organs, but it is
It's the
it's
represent.
right on
Yeah,
that line of the representation elicits that same effect as if you were to get squeamish from like seeing blood and guts in a movie, you'll probably get it with the what I didn't even realize was 3D animated goop texture thing. I mean, it really is testament to the workmanship in this movie. Like,
if you couldn't get through high
wow,
school dissections in biology
have
class,
fun.
maybe not for you.
Yeah, so that was one thing that was really impressive, and it's impressive throughout the movie. Um, I was also impressed with the backdrops. I feel like again, because this is a different scope and scale, it's something that is more grounded. It feels like they were able to put more love and attention to detail into the landscape, so it's something that the like painted backdrops for the animation are just stunning to look at. I mean, it really does feel picturesque uh,
Like
throughout.
they look like paintings that somebody just took off of a museum wall and
Yeah,
they're just like animating over it.
it's almost like some of the shots in, especially Fellowship of the Ring for the Peter Jackson
Yes.
Lord of the Rings.
Ah,
It reminds me of that kind of thing where it's just like, yeah, look at in Peter Jackson's case, it's like, here's a snapshot of New Zealand. New Zealand looks great, is it not? Look how wonderful this
it's
is.
fucking beautiful.
In this case, it is the forests and Irontown and the different locations in its own like contained environment, story, world built thing. It looks great.
They're
And
so great at making these little like their movies are like terrariums. They like just build these
yeah,
little worlds in this like concentrated space
yeah,
and they're so accurate, but they're a very just small contained thing.
yeah.
That's
And
almost what I would call it.
I think comparing it to Howl's and Spirited Away feels a little bit more like Genie in the Bottle, very Narnia esque in that sense, because it is
Yeah.
very transported to another world type thing. In Howl's Moving Castle, it feels like it's a small section of a bigger world that you're just kind of zoomed in on. With this one, it feels like you get like a, a medium section of a world that is presumed to exist much larger than this, but you get a very like almost strategic view of all these different
Almost like
players.
V for Vendetta. Like there's
Mm,
a grander thing out there, but it's very locked in and concentrated thing you're usually
yeah,
focused on.
yeah. Um, so scale, I think that the scale of the movie is slightly larger than some of the others, just because of the the number of characters and number of perspectives. To use the term political in its like literal sense of these different factions and characters interacting with each other,
Casts of people.
yeah, with varied opinions and motives and agendas. um in that sense, I feel like that this movie is very political in that it's balancing all these things, as opposed to like political in it's trying to say left versus right in the real world. I don't think that's quite where this movie goes, um, which is very interesting. Um, it's a really good it's like this is one of the better like balanced things I've seen, where it shuffles all of these cards together and it makes a whole deck without ever feeling like any of the cards are like bent
It's
or
got the
broken, and you
perfect
know
amount of
exactly.
mana, the perfect
Yeah.
amount of removal, the perfect amount of creatures.
Yeah, yeah.
It curves out like nothing, like butter.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah. If
it.
you go from a Magic or Hearthstone perspective, it is a perfectly like mid curve game that like
Do
you
something
don't even
every
have to
turn,
mulligan.
spend all your mana.
Yeah. Ugh. So that's kind of the extent about like the craftsmanship of this movie. Um from here we'll get into more of like the spoiler stuff. Without necessarily focusing on the plot, because I do think the plot in short, again, spoilers now, I feel like the plot in short is very simplistic in a grand sense, but it is so integrally it's so intertwined with the characters all of their different motivations that it just the plot just is happening, like you really are just like thrust into okay, welcome to these people's lives, go, and it
And
just
it's very
goes.
much it's like origami where it like very much all folds into itself, like characters that you have, we find out later they're actually connected in some way due to actions in the other character's past that
Yeah,
like caused repercussions in other characters' life, but we didn't know that at the start.
yeah,
That's just something we stumble onto later.
yeah. It's very cyclical in that nature, where it's all connected, and yet it all feels free form. It's so weird. It's great. So that was one thing. To dive more into the vessel in which the story is kind of experienced by the audience, um, I would say the most main character you get is Prince Ishitaka, who to me has a extremely satisfying and organic arc in this movie. This is something that I don't know if I felt there being a as natural of a growth of an arc in another movie. Like I can't even think of something where it feels that natural. Um, it, it's surprising. It the way that I described it is in Dungeons and Dragons, there's a lot of different ways that you can handle characters leveling up, whether it's like an objective thing, if it's a milestone form of leveling up, or if you go like the classic XP route of leveling up. And this movie, it feels
Do
like
people
it
actually spend the time to do that?
to do EXP. Oh,
Oh my god! Like
oh
if
God, yeah.
people do,
No,
oh,
people definitely
screw
do.
that.
I think
Oh,
the most prominent use of that would be like Adventurers League, where they like D&D for the sake of like the dungeon crawl aspects of D&D. I feel like it's much more numbers focused.
see,
Um,
I find it a lot easier though because I can just be like, okay, like once they get if they get to like this part of the dungeon, then they get their level ups. Like I find it even
yeah,
easier with dungeons to do it
I
that way.
it's
Hey, guess that's just me.
yeah, on the D&D topic, it's something that you it very much depends on how you run your games, and whether it's something that you're playing it with like the same group of people, or if you're in like a larger collaboration of people. I think like in a club setting, I could very much see there being not for the club that I've been with, DU Dungeons and Dragons, but in some kind of a smaller community, you have like your player character has XP, and they'll like jump into this campaign and then maybe jump into another campaign. That's very close to like how Adventurers League works, is you have this same character that you almost like
Yeah,
Pokemon shuffle it through.
yeah, quite literally.
Yeah,
You're like crash bandicooting through a freaking hub world to
right.
like go to all these different. Yeah,
Yeah,
working with all these random people.
so in a sense of it being this balancing act of D&D XP and D&D milestones,
Milestone for
I feel
life.
like the main character in this goes through the arc in this blend of both. And
He really
again,
takes the steps necessary to get to the point that he is at the end of the movie. It's not just like 90 minutes in, all of a sudden he just has this huge change of mind and like,
yeah,
and now it's this. It's like you follow the entire critical path.
yeah, it's not a an epiphany thing. It
It's a slow a build up over time of like things
yeah,
he witnesses and
and
have an
acts
effect
on
on him.
and intervenes with, and yeah,
People he meets, places he goes.
it's crazy. Um, Similarly, and I think this contributes drastically to how I feel about the plot overall. All of the side characters as well have very specific layered motives. It's never as simple as like bad guy is doing evil for bad guy's sake.
Let me help you, hero, in the great quest to be a hero.
Yeah, it's nothing like
You are
that.
so noble, you inspire me to be with you and not worry about my own problems.
Yeah,
None of that.
it really isn't a black and white cut and dry thing, and I really appreciate that. That's something that in life I very much try to look at things as being, a complex balance of, okay, what's that opinion, never just a good bad direct call at the end of the day. Um it it, it feels like that mentality is directly translated into how these side characters are made, because there is not a
It's a very
single
pragmatic look at it, right?
yeah it there's not
It
a
is weirdly
single
realistic.
there's not a single character in this that makes me think, oh, this person is outright evil, this person is outright good. It is, oh, this person is doing this because they are working towards their own form of, like it's they're working towards their own form of good. It's almost like the epitome of like a good villain is the hero of their own story.
Exactly, yeah.
That's every single character in this. Like they're all out for their own agenda, and they've all like realistically it's something where
It's
the
kind of the opposite of Lord of the Rings, where they're all very hyper focused on this one task being either
yeah
completed or stopping the other group from completing said task. It's the opposite. Like they're all on their own little quests and missions,
yeah
and being together, they have to interact because they're either obstacles or they can help each other with certain things.
everybody is hindering the other people's mission in some way or form.
It's almost a battle royal where it's like
Yeah,
you got like four different people all trying to seize the brass ring
yeah,
and
and
stopping and helping as much as they can help themselves.
yeah, and to greater grow that, and why I think uh this is very impressively balanced, is it applies to the factions involved as well. Because if I were to say there's a greater one side versus the other, it's nature versus humanity, it's the forest versus humans. But
I
it's
would almost say like nature versus like human industry.
yeah, but to jump further than that, like it's not just an environmentalism. um this is something that, like, I think Ferngully is a great example of where stories usually go with an environmental look, where it's like, oh, human industry is bad, like it is outright just, this is a not good thing, you're
Yeah.
destroying
We
the
just need to
forest, so
stop it.
no. Yeah, in this
Doesn't matter the
case,
repercussion, just stop.
yeah, in this case you get to see both sides of both sides. It's nature is both a uh a brutal and harsh thing, while at the same time it's nature. It's something that is required for like the things to grow, yet in its beauty there's this underlying chaotic, not necessarily mischief but danger to it. and
There's no
offset it.
morality in nature. It's just surviving.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And
it.
then going over to the humans side of it, it's something where they are caught in this balance of like, okay, we're fighting amongst each other, we're having this like internal politics of this, that, the other, but at the same
They've
time,
actually gotten to the point where they're making guns now, which is always
yeah,
a big thing for killing.
yeah, and while that like puts them over the edge of other factions, i.e., things like nature, it's also this balancing act of like, okay, now that we've like started to embrace industry, we're starting to see things that aren't just war benefits. Like you have this shift in class and how progress works, not just in a we can conquer nature now, but in a, oh hey, like to get more specific, it has a number of women that are like, yeah, we have like this stable income. This is a hell of a lot better than where we were, where it was more like concubine type respect and understanding and work.
Yeah,
Now it's like, no, like we've got
they have a
say.
job,
Yeah, this is our deal now. And
which is of course very similar to like World War II, when a lot of the men were gone from the states, and a lot of
yeah,
women started taking up like welding and a lot of trades that traditionally were never filled by females.
yep, yep. It's very similar to that, and it's you can kind of like draw some of that inspiration from it. I know it's something that I appreciate that Princess Shitaka like actually helps them in some of their work, and is like, yeah, this is tough. like, like he acknowledges again that like everybody's different perspectives type thing kind of coming back into play. Um, it's yeah, it's a very good balancing act of all of these different factions and their opinions and like seeing the benefits as well as the detriments. um Ultimately though, and this is where the the wrongdoers end up coming from, and I think this is the grander theme, the grander idea of the movie, is that somewhere along the way these agendas that everybody has all of their individual opinions, and there's benefits and detriments to each. At some point those agendas start to clash and that becomes hate, and that's the ultimate theme of this movie, is that hate becomes this cyclical nature of violence where everyone eventually just starts killing each other
Violence
with,
begets more violence,
exactly, like eye
as it
for an
always
eye
has
makes
been.
the world go blind. It's something that it eventually gets to the point where the forest's factions of wolves and apes and boars are looking at the humans as, we need to exterminate all of them or we're going to die. And the humans are kind of like, if we're going to continue progressing and unite as a whole, we need to look at the forest and kill like all of the spirits of the forest or we're going to die.
And then we can
And
just do whatever we want.
then we'd be free. We're done. We can do anything. And uh the the end of this movie, it becomes a like love and understanding, like finding that middle ground is how you defeat hate. And I think that this movie has uh an incredible benefit to it in having it so that the really bad thing, quote unquote, the thing that starts this whole ordeal, is a literal manifestation of hate. And it's funny because something that I thought of is the way that it kind of gets at Princess Shitaka and infects him with this curse that starts the adventure. He's trying to find a cure for it. Um, it kind of reminded me a little bit of going back to Lord of the Rings, where there's Frodo getting stabbed with the Morgul blade, and it's something that like seeps and
Slowly corrupting
festers,
him.
and even though it's something that like they find a short-term cure, there's always that scar, even after his whole adventure is finished. Very much the same vibes as what I got from the literal manifestation of hate. the demon
Well,
infecting and festering in anything that it possesses.
well, and of course, like like the demon is a creation of like the people, like when they were clearing out the forest, and
Mhm. Yeah,
there was
it's
a
this ingrained
yeah,
built response
like we
from the forest
created our
side.
own consequences.
Yeah, it's so multifaceted. It's great. It is something that I watched it. I watched half of it, and then I went, all right, I gotta like. It was a little bit later at the night at that point, so I'm like, I need to like properly have a sit down with this, and I watched it through
Yeah,
again. And then after I finished watching it again, I then went online and was starting to look for more dissections and opinions on it because this is the most intellectually engaging one of the movies that
I
we've
would
watched.
say this and Grave of the Fireflies for Ghibli are very much like the very deep diveable films. Like there's a
Yeah,
lot going on there.
yeah, um,
Spirit.
and I think a lot of what adds to this is going into kind of the influences and what has kind of trickled out of this movie, or at least what I was kind of seeing, for like going for a very George Lucas, it's like poetry, it rhymes type ideal. I'm a Star Wars. I mean, I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt now, if that says anything. um, Going through like some of the influences for it, there is a scene towards the end where you get like the manifested spirit in like Godzilla form, which I thought was very funny because in this whole thing like being created, it's very much kind of like seeing the ugly side of industrialism creating problems that humanity then has to deal with. like that
Which
was
they deal
one.
with more and more poorly as time goes on.
Yeah, that was something that was very reminiscent. We mentioned the kind of World War II-esque thing where, well, there is a good side to industry. Like it does improve people's lives. You have this like vague undertone of, okay, hold on, where is humanity with environmentalism and how does it balance with nature as opposed to trying to simply dominate it and then nature fighting back. Those were all things that are very easy to see as influences on the grander scale. Um, in addition to, again, I do think a big influence is that idea of everybody has reasons to be doing what they're doing. It's not just a YOLO because I'm doing this simply because I can. Um,
Well, and I think a big driving thing in the plot too is
mhm,
you have the main two factions, like at the end they're kind of supporters are fighting each other,
yeah,
and it's kind of up to Ashitaka to not pick a side and join that fight. He's
yeah,
trying to stop that
yeah,
because it's not going to get us anywhere. Is the
yeah.
thing. So like it's a cry out for like cooperation and participation with one another to like solve the problems that are in front of us rather than worrying about where our lines are drawn and where we
Mhm.
stand,
Yeah, yeah,
because we can't
and
get anything done if we just sit around prattling on about it or
yeah,
fighting and
yeah,
pointlessly killing each other.
yeah. If you're stuck in this
Like
cyclical
he's there
violence,
for progress, trying to stop that violence.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And then, funnily, this is something that in watching it, I just have to acknowledge. I guarantee that there are influences that stem to other places as well, but at a certain point, I was watching this and I'm like, this feels like Star Wars Rebels season 4 in a nutshell. In maybe not as exact of ways. I would say Rebels is very much more kid friendly and very much more focused on its own lore in being a Star Wars show. But man, I was watching this and I went, "Holy crap! I can see a lot of the influences." And we
Well,
made the reference of where does Star Wars originally come from, Connor? Like,
there are a whole series of movies from a very legendary director in Japan, Akira Kurosawa, and he's the guy who really started off the Japanese samurai movie craze. Like he really established it. and he has a series called Yojimbo, and it's a whole bunch of movies. And throughout it, the whole time, it's this samurai, and a lot of the themes of his movies, like at one point, he's called like a stubborn sword that won't stay in his scabbard, and he starts to detest killing more and more, but he keeps finding himself in situations where he can't avoid it, and it really starts to get to him and starts to even drive him mad at some points. So it is of course funny to see that like that reflection in Star Wars in this,
Yeah,
because it's a very constant thing in a lot of Japanese storytelling.
yeah, and a large chunk of Star Wars. I mean, it's something where he kind of George Lucas blended uh, old samurai movies and westerns and threw it into space with a
Well,
fantasy
and
theme.
even westerns, Akira Kurosawa,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
actually has rights to a Fistful of Dollars, because that movie
yeah,
straight up is just one of the Ujimbo movies plot lines,
yeah,
and he actually gets royalties on that. So like it's just one of those funny things.
yeah.
It's
So
so funny, you can really go down the rabbit hole on it and just find all
right.
these connections. It's
So
very cool
carrying
in that
on
way.
from that, with and this is spoilers for a very different show, so but we'll mention it here in Star Wars Rebels for season 4. I mean, it's something where as I was going through, I was like, oh my god, Kanan and Ezra, and Kanan is the mentor of Ezra in the show, and um, just before he goes on his like really big step in season 4, he has a brief ceremony of cutting his hair, which I'm sure alludes to something in Japanese culture that I'm not familiar with. But Ishitaka has a very similar scene where he does exactly that same kind of motion and thing before going out into the wider world, and then with Kanan and his spoiler again, he ends up uh, dying in this endeavor. Shortly after beginning this little bit of adventure, you then get Kanan somewhat, and this goes into the idea that things are cyclical. You get his influence through the Loth wolves, which are like these larger, dire wolves, very similar to what I was seeing in Princess Mononoke, where it's these wolves that are larger than life, that end up kind of providing their own motivations for like doing things in Rebels, where it's both guiding Ezra, but it's not as simple as, oh, the wolves are good. Like the wolves very much do have,
They serve their own interests.
yeah, they serve their own interests, and they have a very intimidating presence about them. I mean, when you think of a wolf, as opposed to simply a dog, a wolf will snarl, or it might howl. It might be
It's something to be feared, not like petted
not
and
played with.
intimidated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a similar situation here, where in Rebels, the wolves push their ultimate goals and ideals with Ezra, and the rest of the Ghost crew, and then finally the grander scope of like industry versus nature, kind of coming back again, and where there's this like weird line of environmentalism. It's something where they end up winning the day in Star Wars Rebels against the Empire, which is very industrial focused, by leaning more into the environmentalist aspect, and having it so that uh, nature comes in to deal with things like star destroyers. Like it's it was weird to like see where those things may have come from. I would not be like surprised at all
Oh,
if
absolutely.
Dave Filoni had Princess Mononoke like actively in the back of his mind, or
Well, and especially for someone who is a part of the animation industry,
oh
I'm
yeah,
going to assume
oh
he
yeah,
probably saw this at some
and
point.
not just part of the animation industry. I mean, it's something where
Yeah.
he worked on what I'll say is quote unquote Western anime, being Last Airbender. Like he worked on
Yeah.
the cartoon Avatar movie, or bit movie, ha, series, show,
And
not
that
movie.
show
Emphasis,
is
not movie.
heavily inspired. There's a lot of Mononoke inspirations in that in
Yeah,
Avatar.
yeah.
Like
So,
I think that's unarguable.
oh, without a doubt. So that was something that this is the first time that I've watched a movie and been like, oh, interesting, connecting dots outside of the movie while still being like incredibly drawn in and immersed in the movie itself.
It's crazy to kind of
It's
see the
dense.
keystone where all that stuff was like kind of built off of.
Yeah,
And you get down there, you're like, wow, this is kind of like one of the spots where it kind of started right around.
yeah, and
Interesting.
in talking about this movie, this is a movie that feels like it is for a different age range demographic than a lot of other animation pieces that we've talked about. Like if Spirited Away is for younger kids, like maybe to 10 years old, and then adults can still very much appreciate it. If Howl's Moving Castle is maybe like tens to tweens, is a little bit closer to what I would imagine with it, but again, adults can appreciate it. This movie is like tweens to teens and young adulthood. I think this is something where, in both its presentation and just the depth to it, like it is a lot to dissect and to take in and to pick apart. I know you had mentioned like the Animal Farm book, where it's something where you
Yeah.
read it and then you just kind of like sit with it and go, okay, hold on.
You can't like get it out of your head. Like it's like just not okay in your stomach. Just having it feels like you went through
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
even though you didn't.
and it's something where it's like you kind of want to dissect it, go back through, do it again,
Yeah,
and
there's
pick
this
up
like
more.
unanswerable question that you have to like try to find the answer to, but you don't really know what the question is. You're
Yeah,
just like, I have to know more.
yeah,
That hit me a lot, especially too when I was in high school. I would get really obsessive like that. Like I would
exactly.
spend like weeks like looking at anything I could find on like some weird specific thing.
Yeah, and this that evokes that same mental anguish and pressure and it's
The
something that you got to
Matrix
dive
is
in.
probably my one of my better examples of like that,
Mhm.
where it was like something that you can look at in so many different ways and take
Yeah,
all the little stuff to mean so many different things. It's very
yeah,
cool. That.
very thought provoking, very much a like rewatchable, and you get a different thought process perspective each time. There's a lot. This is dense. This is dense, and one of the better things that I've seen, and I will be watching it again. When? Who knows?
Oh
But absolutely. Um, that being said, uh, we'll wrap up discussion there. Go experience the plot and the
great.
themes for yourself. uh,
You won't regret it. It's not
it's
a long movie.
something.
It's great.
Yeah. Connor, where can we check you out at?
As always, Five String Connor on YouTube. Or come and hit me up to get slapped up on Pokemon Showdown at Nonsense Narrator. Play any KOF 15 or Tuck at 7. Hit me up at Bank Cleric. I'm always down to play. I got a couple other games on there too, if you see. So either way,
Absolutely. And then if you want to see more of me outside of Narratives and Nonsense, we post a podcast every Monday, late, yeah, like mid evening, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. Uh, that said, if you want to see more of me in particular, there's here, or there's also Gillidan for the Win. That's my YouTube. We stream Kingdom Hearts on Wednesdays. That's myself and my friend John, who has never experienced any of the Kingdom Hearts. We're on Chain of Memories. Or you can see me experience Halo for the first time. That is on Sundays. Or you can also see me on my buddy Marcus's channel, Eldritch Bunch, because he hasn't experienced Knights of the Old Republic, that classic Star Wars game, and I am guiding his way through. Following that, that's the end of today's thing. It's a good dissection. It really is something to pick apart, and
absolutely.
yeah, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week.
Bye.